Today I want to take a look at Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, the second game to come from Arcane Games, devs of Dishonored, Prey, and Arx Fatalis. It's a game I've played a lot, and even though I can't say I love it, I do enjoy it and I think it's very interesting. Like Arx Fatalis before it, Dark Messiah inherited many elements of the immersive sim genre that Rafael Colantonio was fond of and heavily inspired by. It attempts to draw the player into its world by offering freedom to the player to influence their character in the story they're involved in. Like other games in the genre, it does a lot to try and keep the player in the game world. The story is told through dialogue, the setup of the environment, as well as notes and journals written by the characters. Unfortunately, the story is rather bare bones. The plot is that you are Sareth, a wizard in training, and your master says that you have to find the Shantiri crystal in order to get the Skull of Shadows because a necromancer called Arantir is doing some evil shit with it. The game starts you off in a tutorial dungeon. Guided by your master's voice, you are taught the basics of gameplay. You get a sword, a bow, and a fireball spell. You're also taught how to use the environment in battle. This is the combat's main strength. There will be many boxes, barrels, and oil jars just lying around that you can pick up and throw at enemies to stun them, or kill them if they're weak enough. Without a doubt, the environmental interaction brings a whole new level to the combat, and it's further aided by your ability to kick. Swords and daggers are not the best weapon of choice when you can kick a guard or a ghoul off a wall, into a conveniently placed spike rack, of which there are plenty, or into another enemy. The surroundings, such as wooden furniture, floorboards and such, will smash apart when you launch some unfortunate knight through them with your almighty foot, really adding to the realism of the game and adding some weight to your attacks. Moving on, the game starts proper with a heavily compressed video of a pre-rendered scene in which your master Fenrig tells you about the Shantiri crystal and says that you would do well to have a companion. So he thrusts the sexy lady named Zana into your head to be your guardian angel for the rest of the ride. You set out with Zana for the city of Stonehelp to find Menelag. Fenrig says he knows where the crystal is and he's just dying to help you. As you approach the city gates in your horse, the guards ask for your papers, and that's all well and good until the tower starts crumbling and they yell about the city being under attack. You must find another way in, and once there use a ballista to weaken the colossal Cyclops so the guards can finish it off. With this done, it's up to you to find your way through the town into Menelag's mansion. You arrive and are greeted by Liana, who is Menelag's pupil, and she seems to like Sareth. She brings you in and they feast and all is well. Menelag says you're setting sail in the morning on the search for the Skull of Shadows. Unfortunately, he won't be going anywhere as he's murdered during the night. A ghoul makes off with the crystal and you must chase it over the rooftops through the city. This scene I found to be quite enjoyable, to begin with at least. First-person platforming is never the easiest thing to master, and while I usually don't have difficulty with it, Dark Messiah's poor controls don't help. The game features the mantling mechanics seen in games like System Shock and Thief, that allows you to basically clamber onto any flat surface if you can jump high enough to reach it. Theoretically, this should make jumping over rooftops, through windows and the like easy, but half the time it just doesn't work. You'll make a jump, but Sareth just decides not to climb up. Similarly, jumping from ropes isn't as easy as it should be. Once you're on the rope, you just look where you want to jump, press forward, and jump. Sareth leaps off the rope with abandon, and it never feels like you have complete control over how far he jumps, and consequently where he'll land. Thankfully, most of the times you have to jump, it's onto a large platform, but there are certain sections in the game I'll get to later that could have really benefited from better movement controls. Anyway, you chase the ghoul down and get the crystal back. Sareth goes to bed to prepare for the morning. While asleep, he has a vision showing Fenrig saying he doesn't trust him to go alone, and ordering Zana, who now appears as a demon, to possess him. He also envisions Arantir making him kill Liana. This isn't expanded on much and could have done with a bit more explaining, but I'll get to that at the end, the next time the plot actually becomes relevant in the game.
Don't worry, you'll learn to enjoy the pain. You can call me Zana.
The next level begins with Sareth and co on a boat coming up to an island with a temple said to contain the skull. Upon disembarking, you're given the message: if Liana dies or hates you, the mission will fail. Personally, I'm not a fan of pop-up messages like this. Apart from being vague, it's pointless. The only way to get Liana to hate you is to attack her. Given that she's on my side, I'm not going to do that anyway, or even let her die. The mere fact she has a life bar is enough to let the player know she might be killed, and you probably don't want that to happen. So you approach the temple and the few buildings in front of it, and wouldn't you know, they're full of orcs who don't want to let you in. It was at this point in the game I realised I was glad I didn't put many points into stealth. See, this game has light RPG elements. You have a selection of abilities and skills you can level up with points earned by killing bosses and finishing levels. Basically, you've got skills for melee combat, archery, stealth and magic. You can also level up your health and mana pools. Since the game was so combat focused, I had put my points into strength, which allows you to wield stronger swords and do more damage. Archery was useless since bows do comparatively little damage and take an age to fire. I had also invested in a few spells, the fire spell from the beginning and a healing spell in case I ran out of potions and food, not that I would. I feel like the skill tree doesn't add very much to Dark Messiah. You can level up stealth, but it's not as useful since most of the game takes place in small rooms and small corridors, and if even one enemy spots you, they all come running at you with their swords and you'll have to fight your way out anyway. The initial firebolt spell is pretty weak and only really useful when fighting spiders since it allows you to fight them from afar and keep away from their poisonous bite. The other offensive spells aren't that great either. The lightning bolt takes so long to cast and is so inaccurate that you're quicker just slicing and dicing your way through the enemies. The charm spell could be useful for tough fights, but therein lies the problem. The combat is rarely difficult. As I previously mentioned, there are environmental traps everywhere. It seems at some point the citizens of Ashan went mad for spike racks, hoping they'd be collectible one day and they could sell them on. Only upon finding out everyone had them, they tossed them out into the street, into the sewers, or left them in their hallways. Seriously, they're fucking everywhere, and you only need to kick an enemy once to kill them on a spike rack. Why bother with casting spells and winding up powerful axe swings when the heel of your boot will ensure victory? Having said that, I did prefer to fight proper, rather than just with my boots. Kicking endlessly was boring, and slicing an enemy's head off at least made the combat more engaging. You have 3 options for melee. They are sword and shield, daggers, and staves. Swords are slow and do the most damage, daggers are dual-wielded, they can't be used with a shield but they're fast, allowing you to quickly build your adrenaline meter which enables you to unleash a devastating insta-kill. Staves are weaker still but can knock enemies over. Personally, I didn't find much use for them except when I found one enchanted with fire that let me kill spiders easily. But more on spiders later. Back to the story. You approach and kill the orcs when suddenly a Paukai appears. That's a dragon that breathes lightning. It's too powerful, so you must flee into the temple. I like this. It sets up the Paukai as an aggressive powerhouse that you'll certainly have to fight later once you become stronger. After you flee, you must progress through the temple, fighting weak goblins and more orcs. This level probably offers the most variety in gameplay of all levels in the game. You acquire the rope bow here that lets you shoot an arrow into a wooden surface to create a climbable rope. This opens up the possibility for creating your own way through levels, making the most of their verticality. Unfortunately, it doesn't live up to its potential, as most of the times you can use the rope bow are times when you have to use the rope bow, not affording the player much creative thought in getting through the level. On that note, there isn't much thinking to do when going through the levels of Dark Messiah anyway. They're mostly linear affairs with occasional branches into small rooms that hide treasures in the form of new weapons, armor, spell scrolls or potions. While I think it's great the game rewards exploration, I think it rewards it a little too well. It's usually pretty clear where you need to go, and therefore obvious which rooms will contain treasures for you to find. This leads to the player having an overabundance of arrows, spell scrolls and potions. But of course there are rare weapons to be found, or at least it seems that way at first. Going off the beaten path will reward you with such wonders as the Soul Drinker sword that steals your foe's life force, undoubtedly created by some cunning wizard to make himself stronger, or the Soul Reaver staff or the gutting Chris daggers. Upon finding each one, it feels like you've unearthed some long-forgotten weapon of great power. It's a great feeling until you find another one. Who the hell's making these Soul Drinker swords and enchanted daggers? Has everyone got one and I'm just late to the party? Those unique weapons really lose their luster once you find out they're not so unique. Then it's just another dagger or a staff like everyone else probably already has. There is at least one unique treasure though, the Skull of Shadows, which you're on your way to get. You find Liana in the temple at a huge gate that needs a special key to open. As she's explaining this, the dome's ceiling starts to fall in and the Paukai rears its ugly head. It's hungry and you look like dinner. This time you've got to kill it. How exciting! You haven't even leveled up since the last time you saw it, but now you've got to fight it with all you've got. You try everything, but it barely notices your arrows, firebolts and sword swings, so what are you to do? Looking around, you see a portcullis, and before you can even think, aha, Xana chimes in with, use the portcullis, drop it on its head. Thanks, dear. I was about to solve that puzzle on my own, actually. Sure, I didn't know if it was going to work, but that's all the fun of it. You see the portcullis and think, will the game even let me do this? Let's find out. What should have been a, yes, I can't believe that worked moment turns into, oh, right, yeah, I was going to do that anyway. The point of a puzzle is to be handed all the tools you need and to try and solve it yourself. Even if there's only one solution, the fun comes from trying it and seeing it work. The element of surprise is gone when the game flat out tells you what to do. This is a theme that reoccurs throughout the game. You're actually given very little freedom as a player except in the combat. Avoiding combat is rarely an option, and the story and characters don't change based on your actions, apart from one section later, but we'll get to that. For now, the Paukai is dead, and you're free to go looking for the pedestal to place the Shantari crystal to open the big gate. You must hop into a hole and travel through spider-infested tunnels in order to get back into the temple and acquire the key. These tunnels are possibly the weakest point in the game. Before going in, you have the opportunity to find some antidotes, and you'll find a few shortly after arriving, and damn will you need them. Up to this point, there have been no poisonous enemies, so naturally the resist poison level up has been avoided. Without this though, the spiders will poison you with every bite. That means every time you get hit, and you will get hit a lot since the spiders swarm you in narrow corridors, you'll be poisoned and rapidly start losing health. The best strategy I found was to just run past them. They respawn anyway, so fighting them just means you're wasting antidotes that will probably be more useful later when you fight the inevitable spider boss. So you fight or run past the spiders. You end up at the bottom of a well and need to climb up. There are wooden walkways and beams, but surprise surprise, they're broken. Time to use that rope bow. This is what I meant earlier about the lack of freedom. You have to use the bow here and there's no other way up. You can't use a spell or just jump up. It's bow or nothing. And this section is infuriating. Spiders start coming out of the walls, and their constant attacks coupled with the janky platforming makes it easy to fall or get pushed off platforms, especially when you're trying to aim the bow at a beam to make a rope. But you get out of the well and back into the temple. You've got a little more exploring before finding the pedestal. Here there are a lot of locked doors that look like they need a special key, which Xana will remind you about. Thanks again, Xana. On your way you might even deviate from the path and find a small rectangular room. If you do, a Cyclops will come out of the wall and try to kill you. This is the first thing in the game that can be considered a proper boss fight. You already took down a Cyclops earlier, but you needed a ballista to do that, and even then a knight had to finish it off for you. This time it's just you and Cyclops. Unfortunately, Cyclops is dumb. Object permanence is not something the monsters of Ishan are born with. There are two exits to this room, one down a hallway and one a few steps up in the other side of the room. Upon reaching the steps or the hallway, the Cyclops will just ignore you and wander about the cramped room angrily. You can pelt him with arrows and rocks if you want, but if you're not in that rectangle, you don't exist as far as he's concerned. This fight is frankly pathetic. Even if you don't cheese it, all you have to do is run around and fling arrows at its eye when it winds up for an attack. That's no problem, since you'll have found hundreds of quivers just lying about for the taking. The only thing this encounter tests is your patience for tedium, but it is at least optional, so if you get bored you can just leave with no consequences to face. Continuing on through the temple, you find the spot to place the crystal. Upon turning to go back, the doors close and a group of orcs approaches. The game goes into cutscene mode and all control is taken from the player. You stand there while the orc captain says that if you beat him in a one-on-one duel with no magic, he'll tell his men to let you go. This is a fine example of how a game can organically give the player a choice. Yes, it's still just a binary choice, kill him with magic or without, but it's presented in an organic way. I can't say for sure why the captain offers you that choice. Maybe he appreciates your combat prowess enough to treat you with respect. Maybe he's just seen too many samurai movies and fancies himself an honourable fighter like in the days of old. Either way, he offers you the choice, not the game. There are no menus, no red or blue dialogue tree to make your choice, you just act. And that's a really good way to immerse a player into a story. You let them act freely and their actions have consequences in the world around them. If you use magic in this fight, all the other orcs will join in to kill you. But if you don't, he's true to his word and they'll let you go free. It's great. But either way, you defeat him and you get the special key that looks like it would open the doors in the room. The doors that look just like the ones you passed earlier and...
That spider artifact looks like a key. Let's see where we can use it.
Bitch is worse than Navi. No sooner does the game immerse you with its organic choice section than it pulls you right out with your virtual tour guide telling you exactly what to do. You can get a new objective in your menu. Optional, open the rooms with the new magic key. Thanks, game. I hadn't thought of using the magic fucking key on the magic fucking doors even after Xana reminded me to use the magic fucking key on the magic doors. It seems like every time the game draws you in, it has to do something to pull you right back out. I think this level sets the tone for the rest of the game. Dark Messiah starts out promising, but as it goes on, things feel more sparse and rushed. You'll see what I mean when we delve into the later levels. So you pop the crystal in, get the key, go back to Liana to open the big gate, and Arantir appears and kidnaps her. She yells at you to go on without her, and yeah, sure, why not? She wasn't doing much anyway. Now you're in the crypt. The Skull of Shadows is down here somewhere. There's a big spider statue, of course it's spiders, that needs 4 gems in it to open a big magic door. You're then given 3 objectives at once. Find the separate gems, basically. Since the game gives you all 3 objectives at once, I thought this would mean I could do them in any order. Previously you only got 1 objective at a time, and the next one once you finished them. I was wrong, however. The crypts are linear with little room for exploration. They're also tremendously dull. The lack of enemy variety rears its ugly head here. There are only zombies and a couple of ghouls to fight. The zombies respawn too, so there's no point in fighting. Just ignore them and get the gems. Thankfully, the crypt loops around back on itself, so there's no backtracking to be done. Stick the gems in the spider and the big door opens, revealing another statue and the elusive Skull of Shadows perched atop. The statue speaks to you of a test that must be passed before you're rewarded with the skull. And that test is killing spiders. Not giant spiders, not super powerful spiders, just the same spiders you've already fought before. By this point in the game you'll have learned that spiders are weak to fire, and you'll most likely have acquired a hefty amount of fire trap scrolls, those being scrolls that set off explosions of fire. You've probably also found the fire staff, very useful for killing spiders. I remind you that the Skull of Shadows is used to seal away an army of powerful demons that if let loose would take over the world, and the final test to get it is to kill a bunch of spiders. I mean, yeah, it's a hell of a journey getting there. Going through tunnels, going alongside rotten beams on cliffs, fighting spiders, and going through zombie-infested crypts, but it's also worth noting everything's in ruins now. The skull was put there before it was ruined. It would have been even easier in the past, and that's the final test. Just fucking spiders. Might as well just hand it to you at that point. But then the game does something very interesting. If you've watched this far, thank you, and do let me know what you thought of the video. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to see my thoughts condensed into single paragraphs and pictures, check out my Twitter and Instagram.